Morning. Hi. Happy Flag Day. I've never quite been sure what that means. I guess happy Betsy Ross Day. Maybe it should be. Okay. I never majored in government, so here we go. But
I was in the military and I'm not sure
oh,
what Flag Day is either.
there you go. Thank you very much. Okay.
I actually think it has to do with when they, like the veterans will get rid of old flags, I believe, but I'm not
Oh,
sure. I think this is
okay.
around the time they do it, but I'm not absolutely positive.
All right. Well, thank you, veterans, and thank you for your service. There you go. All right. So let's talk about technology. Technology, particularly in healthcare, is really communication. And this is the most important part to, especially to those of us in health information management, is the technology has really made a tremendous difference, not only in how we do our job, but the quality of what we can do in our job as we manage this huge amount of information. Because remember, when a physician sees a patient, they create information, their notes, their procedure notes, op report, encounter notes, whatever is appropriate. Okay. And then you may have a patient who is seeing more than one doctor, very typical, especially for older, but not exclusively for older people, as you have different body systems that need specific attention.
Like
And
specialists and things,
I'm sorry?
like your specialists and stuff.
Exactly. That's exactly what I mean, is the specialist, the cardiologist, in addition to your family practitioner internist, you may also need a cardiologist. You need an endocrinologist for those with diabetes or thyroid issues. You may need a dermatologist for skin, hair, and nails. So, and in the past, it has always been the burden of the patient to tell the next provider what the other providers did. And I will tell you that patients are not very good reporters. No, they're not. So here's the good news. The good news is technology and this little thing called interoperability, which basically means different computers can talk to each other and share information in a similar way to the way you might share information with somebody using email. Okay. Only instead of a nice little message, what we are sharing is patient information. We're sharing those blood test results that your internist ordered, so you don't have to have the same blood test done again when you go to the cardiologist. And the cardiologist has access to those specific results, not, oh yeah, I think everything was fine. Well, sorry, no. Okay. That, first of all, saves time and effort for the patient having to go get the blood test, get stuck again, time off from work, going to the lab and all of that. But it also saves a lot of money, because now the third-party payers don't have to pay for the exact same test twice or 3 times or 4 times. Okay. So there is a benefit across the board to this. And more importantly, when that specialist can actually read the notes, which are the observations of the other physicians, and look at the actual lab work results, and actually not only can they see the radiologist report, but in many cases they can actually look at the films, the images themselves. And this has the greatest benefit because the more information any healthcare provider has about the patient and the patient's condition, the better, more effective diagnosis can be made, and the more efficient and effective treatment protocols can be used. And wow, isn't that what we're here for?
Yeah.
I mean, right? That's why patients go to the doctor. Hello, I don't feel well, fix me.
Right.
Okay. And so this is incredibly important now that we have, and it started with, especially because we're in healthcare law and ethics, it started with the HITECH Act, HITECH, which is part of ARA. And the HITECH Act back in 2009 said this, basically, all you healthcare providers out there, it's time to get electrified. Well, they didn't write it as well as I would, but you know, politicians. But the
Right.
bottom line is the HITECH Act created this program where when healthcare providers adopted healthcare technology such as electronic health records, okay, the government paid for it, if not in full, at least in part, a great part of it. And you may have heard in your wanderings through the different classes a term called meaningful use. And that was part of the qualifications for the adoption of technology, because people are people. And they weren't even as bad then as they are now. But basically, meaningful use says.
Your voice cut out.
My voice cut out? Can you hear me
I
now?
can't hear you.
Huh? No? Oh, wait.
Did you lose me?
You? Is that
Oh,
better?
yeah. Yep, that's better.
Oh, okay. Speaking of technology, I
Yes.
stand by my assessment, a blessing and a curse.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. When they go down, it's like, ah.
I was in a Zoom meeting with some colleagues the other day, and I was talking, and all of a sudden, and I could still hear them, and they're like, "Shelley, what happened to Shelley? Where'd Shelley go?" Okay, so basically, the HITECH Act, HITECH, I don't remember what it stands for, but not important. The point is that it said, if you meet our criteria of meaningful use, we will pay for you putting in the system. Because that was, especially for physicians' offices, that was, especially back then, an incredibly large amount of money to be able to transition to electronic health records. Now, meaningful use just meant this, is we want more than a receipt for the software. You have to show us that you're actually using it in a meaningful way. That's what meaningful use means. You are actually using it in a meaningful way to help your patients. Pretty
Is that
easy.
the one that had the different stages also?
Yes, yes, because they didn't want providers to think, you know, you have to do the whole thing all at once and then we'll give you the money. They broke it down into, you know, bite-sized pieces, if you will. Now, meaningful use with regard to the HITECH Act ended in 2017, and it worked incredibly well, because by the end of 2017, 93 or 94% of all hospitals were using electronic health records, and about 85% of physicians' offices and clinics were using electronic health records. And that is the beginning, because as you probably know from your day-to-day life, is if you have something on a piece of paper, I can't email this to you.
Right.
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 I have to turn this into a digital document, whether I scan it or retype it or whatever. Okay. So we did that, but the fact that, and especially now, 12 years later, or at least 5 years after the end of this arrangement or program, physicians are creating the documentation digitally in computers. And I don't know about you, but like I just went for my semi-annual physical last week. And as always, my doctor comes into the exam room with his laptop open and ready. And it's so incredible because he already has received the results of my lab work and he pulls it right up. He can see my encounter notes with other physicians. So he immediately knows what's going on with the patient before he even asks me the first question, which of course is, how are you doing? Okay, so this is the incredible importance of healthcare technology in many of its aspects. And now we have imaging, x-ray machines, mammograms, and yeah, that's my assistant. She has to go to a meeting.
She was listening.
All of it now has been converted to digital processes, which is why my doctor can pull up if I had x-rays, if I had this test, whatever, lab work, everything, it's all right there in my patient record at his fingertips. And that means he has incredible quantities of accurate information. Because it's not, so how are the results of your lab work that you did for your cardiologist? Oh, it was good. He said I'm doing good. That does not give the doctor the details that he needs. Okay. All right. So now we're going to look at types of health information technology, HIT, health information technology. And as you can see from what's on your screen right now, and this is a mistake that a lot of people make. I have a lot of students all the way up into master's degree programs that think health information technology is one thing. They talk about it as if it was one thing, but it's important that you understand it is not one thing. It is hundreds of different software programs and hardware. Okay. And so when we talk about health information technology, we're talking about a category of things that includes patient management software. And as medical coding professionals, this is software that you will use on a regular basis because it is in this software that you are able to pull information, demographic information, pull information about the patient's health insurance, which are in different software databases in the facility, and put that together with the codes that you have determined and put it on an electronic claim form and electronically send that to the third-party payer. Okay. That's what patient management software is. Electronic health records, as we have discussed, this is simply the digitizing of a patient record. In essence, it's not very different from the paper record, that manila folder that has 4,000 pieces of paper in it. And although now it is digitized, and one of the best things that, I mean, there's so many really good things about EHR, but one of the things is a search bar. Don't you love that in the world? You know, in the olden days when we only had paper and you had a stack of papers like this high. There was no search engine. You had to read every single piece of paper looking for that one little piece of data that you were looking for. Not anymore. Now you just type it into the search bar. You can also, again, digitally send this if it needs to go somewhere. Okay. Now, there are add-ons, as there are with most big types of software programs, which electronic health records is a software program. Okay. And the first one to gain hold was CPOE, and that stands for Computerized Physician Order Entry. And basically, again, right in the patient record, the physician can type in if he wants to prescribe something for the patient and send it electronically to the pharmacy for the patient to pick up. Or if it's in a hospital, down to the pharmacy for them to send to the nurses to administer. Physician order entry is also for orders for any type of imaging. So you have lab work and imaging. Now, I will tell you back, I guess it's about 12 years ago, again, somewhere around that 2009, 2010, when the original software was called e-prescriptions, or that might have been a brand name. But the point is in the first year that electronic prescriptions were being used in the United States, documented, it saved more than 50,000 lives. 50,000 people did not die because the pharmacist couldn't read the physician's handwriting, or the patient lost that little tiny piece of paper. Okay. And because now CPOE is an add-on to electronic health records, they are connected, which means if the doctor says, and you know, as much as we may hate it, doctors are human beings. Okay. So let's say the doctor, okay, we know that you have an infection. I'm going to prescribe penicillin. And the doctor types in an order for penicillin for this patient. And the computer will automatically send up an alert. This patient is allergic to penicillin. Amazing. Or in other cases, it may come up and say, well, the patient is also on this other medication and that's contraindicated. There's an interaction between these two. You don't want that to be at the same. Or patient is pregnant. She should not be on this. Okay. Whatever it is, the fact is that this, again, has saved lives and continues to save lives. And I'll tell you my very first, and this goes back obviously a long way away. My first personal experience with CPOE, I was at the podiatrist. I had a thing on my foot. And so he wrote a prescription and he put it in the computer and he sent it to Walgreens. And thank you very much. I checked out. I came down. He was on the third floor. I always walk the stairs. I walk the stairs. I'm walking to my car. I'm in the middle of the parking lot and I get a notification on my phone from Walgreens. My prescription is ready to be picked up. That to me, right? That I mean,
I'm a pharmacy tech and I've never seen it work that fast.
Well, that was in the early days, so the roadways in cyberspace were probably not that busy, but
yeah.
But I'm like, oh my gosh, do you know how many patients don't fill their prescriptions because I don't have time to go to the pharmacy and wait there? And,
right.
You know, or you have to go and drop off the little piece of paper and then you always got to go back, you know? The point is that technology has, again, whether you want to call it convenience, but convenience oftentimes equates compliance. In other words, I'm taking the medication like my doctor prescribed because I actually have the medication that my doctor prescribed,
Right.
because they made it easier for me to do this. And that's really very, it's all part of this vast improvement that technology has given us. And then we have clinical decision support services, CDSS, and this also has saved lives and really benefited patients so much. Is so the doctor is in the patient record in the EHR and identified a diagnosis or potential diagnosis. The doctor can then automatically call up current, and I mean like published this morning, evidence-based information on this diagnosis, what something new, new information on new medications or new treatments and things like that. And that also benefits patients because they're not stuck with, well, this is what this doctor always prescribed for the last 10 years. When you have a this, I do this. And not all doctors have the time to read through the medical journals and read all those articles and then have to remember them. I was in a neurologist's office, and he had this corner of his office bookshelves, okay? And in addition to absolutely filled bookshelves, he had stacks of medical publications, medical journals on his floor, easily 2 feet high. And I'm talking 4 or 5 of them. With CDSS, he doesn't need that because, again, we have the miracle of the search bar, which cannot go through all of those paper magazines and say, oh, look, there was, and maybe you didn't even know it, because this study may have been published yesterday and it wouldn't be in a printed medical journal for another 2 months, maybe even 3 months. Okay. But now the physician is getting the information now and the patient can benefit now. It's absolutely incredible. Okay. And patient portals. Do you use your patient portal, Christina?
I kind of, well, mine's with TRICARE, so I get messages like they'll tell me when they're gonna be closed or if they need me to,
Okay. Well, I have a patient portal, and I use it. I love it. I can send, first of all, as soon as results are in my record, or the physician has written the encounter notes for a visit, or if I have a question, I don't have to call. I don't like, and this was, I thought, really very, very good. Back in January, I got COVID Omicron. I was sick for 10 days. And I was talking to a friend of mine, a former childhood sweetheart, who's a physician in Ohio. I'm in Florida. Anyway, I was talking to him on the phone and he said, you have to tell your doctor about this. And I went, no, I don't want to call her. And so what I did was I messaged him through the patient portal, and because it was happening, I mean, it was not something that I needed to remember, is I was able to give him dates, these signs, these symptoms, these signs, these symptoms on this date, then by this date, this is what happened, and by this date, this is what happened. Now, we all know, and back then, well, now they have medication, but back in January they didn't. But the fact is that this was now in my patient record. My doctor was able to put this into my patient record. And I don't know what that means now, but I don't know what that may mean a year from now. or 2 years from now. And that's the point. We are the keepers of the information. And now with technology being the way it is, instead of a whole entire room of paper charts and being put in, we now have DVDs that can hold an entire room of patient records, which means it's less burdensome, doesn't cost anywhere near as much, and we can keep it for so much longer without that concern of storage or anything like that, which is then the benefit of the future. Because as you know, patient history and family history are incredibly important for medical decision making. Okay. So this all is being, well, has been pushed through by the HITECH Act, which is so very important. And further examples of healthcare technology, telemedicine. Oh, my goodness. Now, telemedicine has been around for a long time, but physicians, healthcare providers were, I'm afraid I got to see the patient in person. And then came COVID. Yay. And you know what? COVID is a terrible thing. I mean, the fact that we lost more than 1 million lives in 2.5 years in the United States alone is, but I am a very optimistic, positive person. And so I like to look at the benefits, and COVID has given us many, 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 many benefits. And one of them is telemedicine. So COVID forced physicians and other healthcare providers to engage with their patients or go home and have no practice. Okay. So this enabled those conversations to be had. And you know that when there's a face-to-face aspect, it's so much more beneficial. And providers were still able to care for their patients, leaving only those who definitely needed hands-on approach to have to come into the office, which of course limited exposure, which is very important. Now, as future medical coding professionals, you must know that the video conferencing, there is a, and have you all taken a CPT class yet?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you may remember modifier 95 with the asterisk throughout the book that tells you which codes can be reported as telemedicine, being done as telemedicine as opposed to in person. But you must have both to use that modifier 95, software and hardware video conferencing. You must have picture and audio. So no phone calls can be done this way. And of course, the connections must be encrypted and secure, which comes with most EHR these days, and offering the ability to do telemedicine. But the facility has to ensure that it is encrypted. You can't just assume. We never assume in healthcare. Never. Never, never, never. Okay, so while part of this chapter, and this chapter is chapter 7, medical records and health information technology. So the key things here are understanding what technology has done for us, health information management professionals, and enabled us to not only collect data and protect data, But we also now, thanks to computers, have the ability to analyze data, which means we can give meaning. We can analyze trends. And in the olden days where data would have to be analyzed manually or use old-fashioned computers, now you just choose a menu item to pull up a report on how many patients had COVID or how many patients had their flu shot. And because of our coding, the computer is able to specifically digest and analyze that. And then we can take that and to the administration, to whoever might need to have this information, which is why you learn about charts and graphs and things like that, because we are required to not only analyze this information, but we have to share it with individuals in a very appropriate manner. And this is so that they can understand. And one of the hardest things being an educated professional is having to remember that not everybody knows what you know. So you got to share the knowledge. Okay. All right. You know, you got your chapter 7 stuff. And I also want you, if you have not yet, if you have not yet, healthit.gov. And guess what's in this website? Come on. All right, I will make you guess. It is information from the federal government on healthcare related technology, information technology. It's really a terrific site. And if you have papers to write for other courses or anything like that, this is, if you haven't bookmarked this or made it a favorite website, do it now, because it's filled with really good, trustworthy information. Okay. All right. Questions, comments, curiosities?
No, ma'am.
Okie dokie then. You know how to find me, my email address. And you know I'm here for you 7 days a week. And Bryson, wake up.
I had to help my parents last night until 11 something.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm finished talking now. You can go back to sleep. All right. Okay.
Take care.
You all have a great day, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.